Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Tuckcast with a splash of bourbon.
Hand sanitizer.
We are recording live here in the Silva studio here in Silva, North Carolina. Along with me this evening, we have the bearded wonder, Bobby.
Yep.
We have Diesel and Dale, and we have a special guest here with us, Steve, otherwise known as the Georgia Drifter.
That's it.
On Instagram and social media. Georgia Drifter is in the house here this evening as we come to you.
Everybody got to like and follow the Georgia Drifter.
Absolutely. So
Doesn't it have an underscore? Georgia
Yeah.
underscore Drifter?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so we thought we'd get together once again this week and just say hi, everybody, and hello, everybody out there if you're watching and listening and all that good stuff like that. I put out a little thing on Facebook earlier today. If you folks had any questions, to be sure to send them our way. Nobody sent any questions. Oh, one question was about buying a shirt, and Dale replied back about our web store being up. So
www.tuckflyshop.com/shop. Get yours now. Free shipping while it lasts.
There we go. Dale has another profession we didn't know about.
We can play that at 2 times speed, and that could be the micro machines, man.
That's it.
Oh, man, micro machines. I was too old for micro machines. That dude.
Coming at you real fast, batteries sold separately.
No, those didn't have batteries, though, didn't they? But that was good.
It's been a small battery.
Gosh, what was that Hot Wheels that there was something that was batteries sold separately. It was like watching Nickelodeon or something.
They all did that in all those commercials. It's real fast. It's like a new car ad. You know, they give you like $2.99 a month, but then at the end of it, they do the disclaimer, and you can't hear it. You know, but legally they gave you the disclaimer.
Well, has anybody been fishing? We got a fishing report?
No.
I'm afraid to go fishing. I don't want to be accused of guiding, and get I don't want rocks thrown at me and stuff. So I'm just kind of staying off the water.
I've been too busy.
So has anybody been fishing in our house? Yes. Tanya and Braden went fishing. They caught fish on corn.
Ooh.
Corn.
I saw the fish in the Rubbermaid tub.
Yeah.
Did that come home?
No, it didn't come to our house. No. So they did hit on corn. Anybody that's out there fishing,
corn is the thing that's working.
Corn was the thing.
That means the yellow egg patterns are working, Shannon.
So, but no, I have not. In that rain we got, I got 4 inches at the house, and I think we were very fortunate at our place.
Yeah,
you guys got quite a bit more than we did at the Messer Hacienda or whatever you call that place.
The Messer Manor.
Messer Manor, that's right. And like the wind, we didn't get the wind. We got a few cracks of thunder, a little bit of lightning. I stayed up to after 4 o'clock that morning just in case there was a warning to be able to.
Shannon was ready to get in the bathtub.
No, just whatever we have to do.
He had the mattress off the bed.
I had the hurricane lamps. I had the candles. I had the flashlight.
Tanya, you got to sleep on the couch tonight. Sorry.
I had
we
everything.
Got the mattress in the
and
bathroom.
I know it's 7 a.m. He rolled through that house. Morning, everybody.
No,
Morning.
I did not.
Morning.
Actually, I got up and I went back to sleep. Well, when I went to bed,
We ain't got no power. Take a neighbor shower.
Yeah, no, I didn't do that. I probably slept about 3 o'clock that day. Once I got to sleep, because I didn't get to sleep, and I was.
Bobby, what kind of damage you have? We're going to do a damage report. We're not going to do a fishing report.
Damage report.
Damage report.
We've got 5 landslides in our neighborhood. 3 of them in the road, so the road's messed up really bad. But Tuesday they're supposed to start working on it.
Yeah,
that contractor's quick.
Fantastic. Who is it? Chuck?
Scott. I don't remember his last name. Scott something.
We don't want to promote him,
but unless he wants to pay us.
Unless that's right. unless he wants to give you a break on that road.
But yeah, let's just put it this way: it's a lot of dinero.
Yeah.
To fix it, a lot.
Steve, any damage?
No damage. Just a muddy river in the front yard.
Yeah. So Steve, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later as I try to figure out this gimbal thing. But Steve lives North River Road, so he sees that wall of water coming. I tell you, what was that Sunday night? Yeah, Sunday night it happened. Looking at the gauge, anybody watching or listening, go take a look at the gauge on the CFS USGS water data site. I don't know if it's still available to see. I guess historically it would be.
Yeah, you can look at it.
But man,
that
shot
was
up. Insane. The Tuckasegee in Bryson City almost hit 30,000. I think it peaked at like 26.5, 27.
And it came up quick.
Yes, it did. We're looking at waders over there. This gimbal's done turned around and looked at waders. Nobody even told me.
Hey, it's on my phone. It looks at waders right now.
It's like, oh, thanks, man. Shannon's playing with his phone, but.
No, I told Shannon I kept waiting for the Colorway Apartments to come floating by.
Whew.
Yeah. I mean, no, it was a lot of rain.
One day that little pier out there at Carol's Cabins is going to go. All right, across from
Well,
you.
the one in front of the house was underwater Monday morning. Didn't get in the road, but it got close.
Man, that Buffalo Trace is good.
I actually, Barker's Creek got hit really hard. If anybody that lives around here knows where that's at, that several spots that the roads undermined. People lost their driveways, their bridges on their driveways. The church up there at the split, it was completely covered in mud. The entire parking lot.
Shannon, you said Scotts Creek came up 9 feet.
So yeah, Scotts Creek came up to over 9 feet on their gauge.
Wow.
That's obviously flood stage there. It dropped down. It's back down to 3.8 as of yesterday, and it's actually clearing up quite good too. But it got up and it's receded back down pretty quickly. That was one of the things I did was I was watching a lot of stuff about a lot of the stuff in ancient history on TV, and was watching the gauges and the radar, and you could tell who was getting the rain. Of how quick these places are shooting up really, really fast. There was some impressive numbers on the USGS sites across the board.
Did you watch that Great Lakes drained?
I haven't seen that one there. There's one about where the Niagara Falls
They
is
find
drained.
Edmund Fitzgerald.
Oh, Is Jimmy Hoffa? They find Hoffa?
Wasn't that song? The Edmund Fitzgerald.
Remember they never.
I don't know what
Well, they never
about.
found Jimmy Hoffa.
No,
The Teamsters.
he's buried in Patriot Stadium.
No, I thought it was at
Meadowlands.
Meadowlands, but the
Meadowlands,
Meadowlands is gone, man. That's right. See, we know. Got to throw a little bit of that in there, a little bit of sports. Looks like the MMA thing got shot down by the Disney. They shot down.
That turned out to be almost like the Fire Festival. I mean, that could have went south quick.
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
Ja Rule.
Yeah.
So
WWE's laying people off.
who else was there to lay off?
Wrestlers.
They weren't
Wrestlers.
wrestling in front of nobody.
Well, they made
Wrestlers
some
are gone.
big cuts. They got the XFL is, I think, for sale, declared for bankruptcy.
Shocker, man. That was a bad timing for them, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And then you look at the WWE came out yesterday. They laid off one of the officials has been with the company for 23 years. He got furloughed, or just the flat walking papers, along with several
Walking papers.
pretty good, talented athletes.
Walking boss.
I say entertainers. I mean, I call them sports entertainers. They got walking papers, and nobody's really doing anything live right now. So they're kind of stuck out there like everybody else, and it's one of those things where welcome to our world at this point in time. A little bit. It's unfortunate. But,
So, Steve, how's it to be retired through all this?
Well, I've had a lot of. I'm supposed to be in the Florida Keys right now.
Oh boy.
Mid-April every year, I go to the Keys for a month, and the governor's closed all the boat ramps down there,
Yeah.
so that trip didn't happen.
Slide that mic closer to you.
And we were talking about
There
it
you
before
go.
you got here, Dale. It's a sad state of affairs when you can't go to church, but you can go to the liquor store. And I was debating with one of my buddies who is a behavioral psychologist. He said, well, you got to have liquor stores open because all the alcoholics will get depressed, start committing suicide, beating their spouse, and so on and so forth. And I said, well, if the governor in Florida don't open these boat ramps up in the Keys, I'm going to start taking hostages. And another buddy of mine, he said, well, the fish will always be there.
Right.
But somebody that tells me that has never fished a tarpon migration.
Yeah.
Because you're down there in the Keys, mid-June, it's over.
They don't watch CNN.
I don't know. You need to call Joel Dickey.
Well-
because he put a video up today showing late summer, and
It was baby tarpon, right?
what's his name was down there from Cohutta, Andy,
Yeah.
and they were
doubled up.
doubled up on two tarpon.
Yeah.
Way to go, Joel.
You do have the resident tarpon down there, but the big masses of migrating tarpon, they move through and move on out. But
speaking of tarpon, and I got
What has Shannon gone to here?
No, tarpon, man. So
Shannon's in
Boy,
pirate mode over here.
I tell you.
Give us a profile shot there. Look, turn to the right.
So much. It's like you guys went to Long John Silver's, you went to Long John Silver's, y'all.
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
know Long John
I used
Silver's.
to.
I didn't know what that barbecue place was downstate, but I knew Long John Silver's. This is what the Long
Smithfield's.
Yeah, that too. But this here isn't it like what the guy works behind the back there putting that greasy,
That's because he just got off the block.
R. What would you like today? Arr, some hush puppies.
That's
Arr,
a buffet at Myrtle Beach.
arr, arr. Would you like some butter on that corn?
You walk through the crab,
Arr,
get into this place.
Shannon, if you need a reference for the buffet at Myrtle Beach, you got it.
arr. I just need an earring. I guess a piercing, and I've got it. Huh? Arr. Oh.
You think anybody will eat buffets again?
I was wondering about
Don't
that.
know, man. Don't know.
Golden Corral, that'd be a
I was wondering,
breeding ground for COVID.
Yep. So, because you think about this, all right. So the
bring your own
Harrah's-
spoon, maybe.
Harrah's employs a lot of people here, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Well, I mean, casinos.
yeah. I'm sure
Ouch.
there's a lot of
I don't know.
touching of stuff there.
I mean,
Poker chips, cards,
chips.
one-armed
all the-
bandits.
oh,
Well,
yeah.
and even you know, you can't just say like
The
you know,
escalator.
we'll do the touch screen stuff because I mean, was somebody going to go around wiping that thing?
Well, that's what they were doing. A lot of these fast food joints was going to the touchscreen ordering system, eliminating people behind the counters.
Yeah, but then you still only take one person to go wipe it down after an order.
I
yeah.
don't know. It's really going to change the shape of way things are done.
It's going to be interesting to see how long my debit card lasts. Getting hand sanitizer on it.
It's kind of like
I'm wiping that thing down. They hand it back to me. I wipe that thing down.
I mean, you talk.
Chick-fil-A, they don't touch it.
Yeah, you can do. Just go ahead and
They
order
just-
by your app.
They make you swipe it.
Well,
They hold the machine out
That's
and
right.
you swipe
yeah.
it.
Well, how about the thing at Dunkin'? You know, if anybody goes to Dunkin', some of these drive-through windows have got that swipe thing right there, but they don't ever
Never
use 'em.
use. I
They're
wonder
not
if they
using
even
them, yeah.
work. I wonder if they'd even work.
Yeah.
You know,
Is that what that thing is?
Yeah,
what
well-
they're going to have to
Yeah.
do is, you know, we've had some customers come in when we were open with the cards with the chips that you just kind of hold close.
Yeah, a little tap.
That's all cards that got to go to a tap,
I'm
Yeah, I like
surprised.
and
that.
then where you can just boink it.
We're
I'm
we're
surprised
tappable. We're
that-
tappable.
Yeah, we're
Yeah, we
tappable.
are, but I'm saying everybody's cards got to be that way. So when you go to the thing, you just go boink.
I'm surprised
And
the
it's
fast food
touchless.
restaurants don't have the like the gas station where you just insert your card right there, like at the window or at the register. You know, where it's just like a fixed.
We gonna have
Into
something
it.
like that.
I don't know. I don't know. But where I was going on this path about tarpon was
back to
so,
tarpon.
so back to tarpon here, back on the fishing side of things.
Sorry, your buff
was-
just took it away. man.
So been watching this Waypoints TV when I can get decent internet signal when the
Everybody
boys,
go check that out. That
oh
thing's
my God,
awesome.
there's some
Yeah.
good stuff on there, and
didn't
really
pay us to say that.
you know, watching that you know, some of that Silver Kings, not a paid plug, but Bonefish and Tarpon Trust.
Yeah.
Hearing some of their biologists talk about the regulations, that regulations you may have in place in Florida to protect the tarpon obviously don't exist in other states, and they've actually tracked these tarpon
There's
going
no
up,
laws in North
up-
Carolina.
up
What
as
about
far as
Keeble?
Virginia.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I've learned some stuff about some of these other species that I've seen pictures of you go chase over the years, and other guys down from Big Pine Key and places like that. There that I would have never thought we would have those particular species off the coast of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. You know, tarpon I think is certainly a warm water fish down in the Keys area.
I did hear somebody
For sure, but-
getting one.
Yeah, they go all the way up to Virginia.
Yeah.
They ride that Gulf Stream kind of.
Well, that springtime migration, that water temperature, it's a magic number, and the mullet come in to spawn, and then the tarpon follow the mullet.
and then Steve follows the
Tarpon.
tarpon. He's
And
like
then
right by.
Steve's there with a
No,
mullet.
then the hammerheads come in and try to steal your fish when you hang up. But yeah, the BT&T, they've done a lot of tagging, and a lot of those tarpon migrate down to Mexico, and,
Yeah,
where
no.
they aren't protected down there, and people harvest them and eat them. But yeah, that's one of my favorite places, Big Pine Key, Lower Keys area, and then here lately I've been fishing a lot in the Flamingo in the Everglades.
Flamingo.
I started out there
That's
as a
fun to
little
say.
kid. My dad would take me there as a little kid, and of course it's changed a lot. But yeah, snook on the fly rod, awesome.
I never realized how spooky snook were on the fly. I mean, I've seen the shows, you know, ESPN Saturday mornings kind of thing where they go hit the snook with, you know, bait casters under docks or with lights
Yeah.
or whatever. But man, when you see a snook sitting on a flat and that fly line crosses their back, they gone.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we down there in Flamingo, you're casting under mangroves,
Okay.
and there's not a lot of sight fishing. There is some, but most of the time you're just blind casting.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll get on a school of them fishing with like a stealth bomber or topwater.
Yeah.
and they'll hit at it 4 or 5 times before they finally hook up. And sometimes it's right at the boat. You're about ready to lift the fly out of the water. And
That's awesome.
But so yeah, I used to trout fish a lot, but I kind of got that salt water in my blood now.
Yeah. That's
Well,
good.
You'll come back. You'll be like, let me come back to trout.
I still, well, like last spring, I went down there and I caught 100-pound tarpon, and the next week I was up here catching 6-inch brook trout.
Yeah.
And just as much fun.
That's right.
It's just a different kind of fishing.
That's right. It's fishing. They got fins.
Well, tell us a little bit about your drift boat.
Oh,
Hence the name Georgia Drifter.
Yeah. Well, the Drifter moniker came from back in the late 90s. One of my friends started up a website called North Georgia Trout Online. It's ngto.org. And I became involved in that organization, and it's a 401c3. It's a nonprofit. And was on their first board of directors. And I had a screen name on the message board. I was Drifter because I was one of the first ones that ever had a drift boat around here. I guess the first person I knew that had a drift boat on the East Coast was Gary Taylor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that boat is over in the fly fishing
That's
museum.
right. I dropped it on my toe.
Okay.
Yeah, we helped carry that through that door.
I'm still recovering.
Well, I saw Gary over on the Hiawassee tail race. I used to fish that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, I'm going to have a wooden drift boat. There were no fiberglass drift boats on the East Coast. Shipping was cost prohibitive, and so people were building their boats.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 1998, I built that boat. And my screen name was Drifter on NGTO. And then as I migrated over to social media, Drifter was taken, so I was the Georgia Drifter. So that's how that came about. But, that wooden boat was built in 1998, still got the original paint on the hull.
No kidding.
Most of the varnish is original. A lot of people will say, wooden drift boat, it's too maintenance intensive, and it's not. You take care of the boat. If I fish it and it gets wet on the inside, then I'll let it set outside a day or two and dry before I put it in the garage.
Yeah.
But, you take care of it. They'll last a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's kind of how I found the house over on North River Road. I came up here one weekend fishing with a buddy of mine. This was 7 years ago. And the whole purpose of the trip, and I'd never fished a Tuckasegee. I'd crossed that river bridge over there probably hundreds of times going to the park, backpacking and fly fishing, and never considered even fishing the Tuck. Didn't even know if it had trout in it. And so about 7 years ago, a buddy of mine invited me up to come fishing with him here. And the purpose of me coming was to learn the access points on the river.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him one day, I said, hey, ride around and show me the access points. I didn't have the boat with me that weekend. And we waited and caught tons of fish, caught some nice fish. They were real colorful, looked like they'd been in there a while. And I told Brent, I said, man, you've been holding out on me. This is awesome fishery. And so we're riding around looking at the different access points. And back then, that was before Duke Energy built the boat ramps.
Yeah.
So we had what we call the mud hole access. And then Mr. Blankenship's cabin.
Yeah.
And it was kind of tough to bring a drift boat downstream of Savannah Creek. So we were having to pull out at Savannah Creek. And,
What's that, Mr. Blankenship's cabin that we found out was Miss Stewart's?
Yeah. It's another story. It's another day. But so I noticed all these houses for sale as we were riding around, and that was back when the housing market tanked. So I was able to find this foreclosure on the river that was everything I wanted. It was on the DH, had a garage where I could store the drift boat, and so that's all that.
It's just right size too. I mean, it's not like it's
it's
anything enormity. I mean,
it's got 3 small bedrooms. And,
yeah.
And I built bunk beds in the bedrooms because I knew I was going to have a bunch of guys up visiting all the time, and I tell everybody I grossly underestimated the physical ability of my fishing buddies because nobody can climb in the top bunks. so the top bunks.
Either that or they got overactive bladders. They don't want to tell you.
Well, obesity, overactive bladders,
the list goes on. Sciatica.
Vertigo, you name it. So the top bunks never get used.
That's hilarious.
But so we've had fun with it.
That's cool.
And I've got to where now I float most of the time. I wade every now and then, but if there's enough water to float, I'll float.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen you wade.
Yeah, Not much.
His name ain't Georgia Waiter.
No. And that's one of the reasons for the drift boat. We would go to the Hiawassee and fish. I don't know if you ever fished that tail race over near Reliance.
Yeah.
But back in the mid 80s, you could go over there and catch 15, 16-inch fish on dry flies, and they were holdover fish.
Mm-hmm.
And we were having to do it out of float tubes.
Mm-hmm.
And you get over there and they open both turbines up and you're out there in a float tube. You've got a death wish. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
And people have drowned. Well, the people
Yeah.
have drowned on
That's
that
right.
tail race. So, and then we'd get back to the campsite at the end of the day, and your knees would be aching, your back would be aching from wading and floating in that tube. And I made my mind up then. I said, I'm going to have I saw Gary Taylor in his boat. I said, that's the way to do it. I'm going to have me a drift boat. So I looked around, couldn't find any on the used market, so I ordered plans and went ahead and built one. So
Well, that's cool. This is self-built.
yeah.
Yeah, it's neat, and I tell you what's to me is even more impressive. And I've been to Steve's fisherman's cabin. I don't know what he calls it. I can't remember the name he's got for it. But in the living room area, is it a quarter scale?
Half scale.
Half scale of the boat hanging on the wall. It's impressive. It's really a work of art for sure.
Yeah, I had fun with that. I was in the workshop one day and it was bad weather and I had lumber left over and I thought, well, I'm just going to build a half scale model. So I had the blueprints, just halved all the measurements and that's how that came about. But and then I didn't have anywhere to put it. So when I bought this house up here, I brought it up here and hung it on the wall.
Well, the other part about people not being able to get into the top bunk is because everybody eats so well.
I was about to mention that. If you're going down the river and you smell something good, it might be
the food's
green
really,
egg.
The food's really good over there for sure.
We do.
Yes.
And that's funny. You hadn't mentioned my guide service yet.
We'll let you do that.
Disclaimer. I do not have a guide service. I do not guide. But actually, I have two drift boats. I'm babysitting a clackercraft for a buddy of mine that's overseas. So I have two drift boats. So, and I won't mention any names, but there were some shop owners and guides who thought, well, okay, this guy, he lives on the Tuck. He's got two drift boats. He's got to be a guide. So, like, once a week, somebody's coming up to you, hey, man, are you guiding? I heard you're guiding on the Tuck.
They haven't slashed your tires yet, right?
Yeah, no, and I could tell there was a little bit of angst there.
A little raised eyebrow on that question.
Yeah. And
Where's this guy from?
And I'm like, well, let me rephrase that. I guide, but I don't get paid for it. I have people come up and stay with me, and they're like, I'll say, hey, you want to do a float? And they're like, yeah, come on. So yeah, I show people how to fish the tail race.
Yeah.
But I don't get paid for it. So anyhow, I got tired of people asking me if I had a guide service. So I said, okay, yeah, I got a guide service. And I had stickers printed up, and it's called the Skunked Again Guide Service.
Skunked Again.
And we go where the fishing stinks. And if you float the river with me in the boat,
You get a sticker, right?
if you do not catch a fish, you get a sticker.
Well, there you go. See?
And it has Pepe Le Pew, a.k.a. the skunk, on the sticker.
I've seen a few of those stickers
pretty cool.
floating around the shop
It's pretty
here.
cool, man.
Yeah.
So
Skunked Again Guide Service.
I've got a question for you, Steve. Our good buddy Jim Eric from he's down towards the Salisbury area. He wants to know what kind of wood you used for the boat.
Oh, okay. There's a combination of lumber in that boat, and that's the hardest part, getting all the various types of lumber together. The plywood, marine plywood, is Doug fir. The gunnels are red oak. The frames, and they're called frames, they're not called ribs. If you call them ribs, you upset all the wooden drift boat builders.
You make Bobby hungry too.
Yeah. The frames are Alaskan cedar.
Man,
And
that's cool.
so you could probably get by with other types of wood, but that particular design, it's called a Mackenzie drift boat. The design originated in New England with the lobster fishermen. They would have to paddle out through the surf to check their traps. So they built these skiffs with these upswept bows to thwart off the waves as they were going out off the beach. And then in the 30s, when the economy went south, a lot of those lobster fishermen moved to the Pacific Northwest and went to work in the lumber industry. Huh. Well, now they had a readily available supply of plywood in 16-foot lengths, if that's what they chose to. And now, modern-day builders, we have to use a scarf joint. We have to scarf two 8-foot pieces together. So when you say a 16-foot drift boat, it's actually about 15.6 because you got a scarf joint. But so yeah, you get all these different types. These types of wood, I guess, are used because of their properties, their strength, their lightweight, and
that I never knew that.
Yeah.
That the whole lobster thing.
Yeah. So they took that lobster boat design to the Pacific Northwest, and they adapted it to the Rogue River, the McKenzie River, and some of those salmon fisheries out there in the Pacific Northwest. And the reason they're so good in whitewater is they've got that upswept transom, and that upswept bow. So when you're sitting in current, the current is going under the boat. It's not pushing the transom.
Yeah, it's kind of lifting the boat rather than
if you were
pushing
in a John boat, that current would be pushing the transom. So you can hold the boat in current with like one stroke of the oars. You can actually go backstroke upstream to fish a run a second time. So yeah, the design is perfect for whitewater, and I've got what they call a plastic shoe on the bottom of mine. It's a UHMP, ultra high molecular plastic. They use it on conveyor belt systems, but it's about a.
Sounds like that stuff Clark Griswold was putting on cereal.
Later, dudes.
Yeah, but I got a piece of UHMP on the bottom, so I just slide right over the rocks. And
have you been over the falls in Dillsboro with it?
I have not. Now, Jason Cole kind of taught me something watching him float down to the falls, fish it, and then back to the ramp.
That's the Dillsboro Lake is what we call that, folks.
Yeah, and so
that's fun. I take my family out and we'll do that some.
Yeah, if you don't have a lot of time, and also if you want to fish at dark, it's a good thing to do.
Yeah. Shannon caught his first bass down there. We did that.
Yeah, we went down there one evening messing around.
Top water, orange boogaloo.
So obviously, living in Georgia and doing all the other saltwater species, what drew you to Western North Carolina and maybe more specifically the Jackson County area?
Yeah. I started trout fishing when I was probably 16 years old, and the only game in town down there was the Chattahoochee tail race. Well, in the 70s and 80s, the tail race was a phenomenal fishery.
And then Alan Jackson made a song, and it was over.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
I had to go there.
On the Chattahoochee.
I went to school with Alan.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's another story. But anyhow.
We ain't got nothing but time right now, Steve. That's right.
Steve is full of stories, by the way.
Yeah.
We might have Steve on again just to finish some of them.
Most of them are true. I was fishing the tail race, and that got old in a hurry. So another buddy of mine that liked to backpack and fly fish for trout, he stumbled upon, and I don't know how he found out, but he stumbled upon Hazel Creek.
Yeah, you don't just stumble upon
Hazel
Creek. Yeah.
I don't know how he found it, but
unless you fall off the ridge.
But he invited me to go. He said, "Man, you got to go. You got to go." So we took a long weekend, drove up from Atlanta, and I've told Shannon this story. Back then, this was probably mid to late 80s. You had to go to the ranger station to get your backcountry permit. There wasn't internet then. You had to physically go and sign the forms, and I can't even remember if there was a fee or not. But we would always go to the Deep Creek Ranger Station. That was the closest ranger station to Fontana Dam. We would take the ferry over to Hazel. So we would leave. I'm from Newnan, Georgia, which is about 45 minutes south of Atlanta. Alan Jackson's hometown. So we would leave Newnan like 3 a.m. We would get up to the Deep Creek Ranger Station when they opened the door, be the first ones in, get our permit. Then we would go over come out of Deep Creek, and we would stop at Clampett's Hardware in Bryson City.
Yep.
Now, this was the real Clampett's Hardware that was on the corner,
Yep.
which is now like a gift shop.
Yeah, it's like a general
antiques.
store
And
type
Clampett's is now, I think, a franchise, maybe True Value or
Ace,
something.
yeah.
But we went to the real deal, Clampett's Hardware, and they had the fly box on the counter, and it had all the Smoky Mountain patterns. Most of the ones you see in Roger Lowe's tying book were in that display. So we would stock up with flies. That was our second stop. By now it's like 9:30 in the morning. Get our flies, then we would hustle over to Fontana and try to make the 10 or 10:30 ferry over to Hazel Creek. We would go in on Thursday morning and stay till Sunday afternoon. So that whetted my appetite, and that got to where that was a 2 or 3 times a year trip.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we really got to know Hazel Creek well. And then we started branching out and doing backpacking Forney Creek and Nolan Creek. And then we would do crazy stuff like come down from Klingman's Dome and fish the headwaters. So yeah, that's how I kind of found Jackson County. Like I said, I come across that bridge dozens of times, never in my wildest dreams thinking I'd own a house on the Tuckasegee River.
I never thought I'd own a fly shop. So here we are.
So then it progressed from wild trout. My boys grew up fishing Hazel Creek. That was a springtime trip. Every year, spring break, we're going to Hazel Creek. And as just little kids, they got very proficient. And you guys know how tough it is to catch trout on Hazel Creek. And both my boys were going to Hazel Creek when they were 7 and 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we started going to Yellowstone, doing the backpacking out there, and I always told them they were always intimidated when we would go to Alaska fishing or we would go to Montana fishing. They would be a little timid. I don't know if I can catch trout out there. And I said, look, guys, if you can catch trout on Hazel Creek, you can catch trout anywhere in this country.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
it's technical. Yeah.
There's so much involved, from stealth to fly selection to the leader you build and tactics. And so that's how I found Jackson County. It all started with the park.
Now, we've had this conversation in here, just sitting around shooting a breeze or at your house and stuff like that. But I know that you've kind of said that this area is really a destination for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And tell us why you feel like that and what made you feel that way before. I don't know if it's before you bought your house or after you bought the house.
Well, coming from middle Georgia, I mean, there is no cold water fishery. So North Georgia, there's a cold water fishery, and I always tell everybody, and I hadn't had a Georgia fishing license in probably 15 or 20 years. And I tell everybody, drive another 45 minutes and the fishing is twice as good. It's just a matter of
I like hearing that.
geography.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, we're 45 minutes from Clayton.
Yeah.
If you're going to go fish Warm Woman or Chattooga.
Much love to our Cohutta and Unicoi friends. But
Come see us after the
on.
Rona's over.
Yeah.
Come on.
But so throw that in. That it's from that area, Atlanta. That area, it's the closest, most consistent wild trout fishery.
Yeah.
To the metro area. Couple that with the history. I bought, and another way I got turned on to the park in this area up here. Back in 1976, Don Kirk published a book called Smoky Mountain Trout Guide.
Uh-huh.
First edition. I still got it over at the house. It's all battered and soiled, but I've got notations in it. But if you've ever read Don's book, he's got a lot of history in there.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the chapter on Hazel Creek. Not only does he tell you about hatches and how to fish, where to tactics, techniques, but he talks about the history of the stream shed, who lived up there and why they don't live there, the cemeteries,
Yeah.
the revenuers and moonshiners, and it's just fascinating.
A lot of history there.
So I read Don Kirk's book cover to cover in 1976 and started checking off the streams. Like I say, Forney Creek, Hazel Creek, Eagle Creek, all the North Shore streams. I fished and backpacked all those. So yeah, you combine the quality of the fishery with the history, and then if you're staying in Bryson City or Silva, especially nowadays, you can go eat, you can walk a half a block to a brewery, you can hear live music.
Yeah.
It's just a good atmosphere. And I think especially when you get older, when I was younger, when I would come up here to fish, I felt like I had to be on the stream from dark to dark because I was only going to be here 3 days, 4 days, tops. But now that I'm retired and I'm up here a lot, you met Chuck. Me and Chuck will sit out there on the deck, and I'm like, "Well, Chuck, you think we ought to go fishing today?" And he's like,
"Fire up that green egg.
Yeah.
Let's do this."
He's like, "No, let's don't say we did."
Go get me another long neck.
Yeah. So and then we have the concerts here on Friday nights out at the park, and it's a destination for people in the metro area. It's a good weekend if you're bringing your spouse, and she doesn't like to fish. I mean, you got all the shops, the antique places, the entertainment, the casino. A lot of guys
spas now too. We got spas.
Yeah,
popping up.
yeah. A lot of guys drop their wife at the casino and then go hit the Ravens Fork. I would never do that, but but it's an option.
Give your wife that Velcro wallet.
Yeah.
Hey, since I'm not on our live, is there any other questions for him?
I haven't seen any, but sometimes my feed here doesn't
pull them up.
Doesn't pull up. If anybody's got any questions for Steve,
there's one story I want you to tell since you're
comments.
talking about the park, and this I think is fairly recent that you did this. But tell everybody about the jet that you went looking for that crashed in the park. That's a pretty cool story.
Shannon's excited.
Real nice. Real nice.
Yeah.
So there's a book out called Mayday, and it's about every plane crash in Smoky Mountain National Park. And I had read about this plane crash up Kep Park Prong, and it was an F-14, Navy or Air Force, I can't remember.
It was F-14 is United States Navy.
Thank you.
Shannon resembles that remark right now.
U.S. Navy.
Thank you, Seaman Messer.
Well,
so
Is that
where's Fred?
so yeah.
YMCA?
So then I had saw on the on a message board somewhere, people were talking about this plane crash on Kep Park Prong.
Up Cabin Flats.
Cabin Flats.
Cabin Flats.
I'm sorry, I got it wrong. Cabin Flats.
Cabin Flats.
Bradley Fork to Cabin Flats. Okay. I'm getting old. But
That's all right.
So anyhow, I see on this message
You don't
board,
sleep on the top bunk either, do you?
The Buffalo Trace.
being negatives. Sometimes I don't even get out of the I don't even get out of the recliner.
Buffalo Trace is gone.
he gone. So I started seeing on these message boards about this plane crash on Cabin Flats from, I don't know, 1980s or sometime. But nobody had pictures. And I was
Like Sasquatch and Muskie.
yeah. So I was into photography, so I thought, doggone it, I'm going to find this plane crash and do some quality photography. So I waited to the fall when the foliage was turning. I did my research, and I thought I had pinpointed, just based on the book Mayday. It had a chapter on the crash, and based on the message board, people finding pieces of debris, I knew the main crash site. Well, I say the main crash site. The main debris field was close to a particular feeder stream. So I had my handheld GPS, and I knew if I got to that feeder stream, I felt like I could find it. Well, let me back up. What happened, there were these two jets, these two F-14s were on maneuvers from Warner Robins Air Force Base down in South Georgia.
Man, it's hot there.
They would come up and fly over the park and do maneuvers. Well, they touched wings in midair. One of the aircraft limped back to Knox County Airport and landed safely. The one that crashed in the park, the pilot ejected, parachuted down. His chute got hung in a tree up Cabin Flats. He was able to get out of the chute, and as he was coming out on a trail, the rescue team was coming up and intercepted him. Apparently he had an EPIRB or whatever it is they have. But what happened is his aircraft, he was in the air in the parachute. The aircraft came down on a kind of a long glide slope and hit the treetops up on the ridge where the AT is. Well, when it hit those trees, it was going so fast that it just disintegrated.
Mm-hmm. I've seen part of that debris.
Well, the thing that stayed intact were the engine cores, because the engine cores are so heavy and so solidly built, they didn't disintegrate. Well, one of them wound up on cabin flats. So I got my backpack and went up there and hiked all the way up to Cabin Flats. And if you ever fished up there, you know Cabin Flats Trail dead ends. And there is no trail beyond the backcountry campsite. The stream is the trail. So I go up there and got up there late that evening, put up my tent, got a good night's sleep. Got up the next morning, got my day pack with my photography gear, tripod, took my fly rod, started fishing up Cabin's Flats. I was catching a few brook trout, a few rainbows. And I get to this feeder stream, and I still hadn't seen any debris. So I'm getting a little disappointed. And I thought, well, maybe I'm at the wrong feeder stream. So I keep hiking. Finally, I start getting to some cascades. And I'm like, no, this is way too far. I've passed it. So as I'm coming back out, I'm fishing the deep holes, and I get to this one deep run. And, of course, you fished up there. You know that water's crystal clear. And I'm fishing this pool that's about 4 feet deep, and I'm drifting a nymph through there, and I look and I saw what I thought was a beer can on the bottom of the stream. And I reached down with the purpose of picking up the beer can to put it in my pack to haul it out. Well, it was a piece of the fuselage. It was about the size of a notebook paper, piece of notebook paper. It had the kind of the light blue-gray paint on one side. It had the aircraft flush-mounted rivets on it. It had a hinge on it. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I'd already asked the ranger before I went up. I said, if I find any of this debris, can I remove any of it as a souvenir? He said, yes. He said, if the item was there when the park was created, it's an artifact or a relic, and you can't move it. But if it was deposited there after the park was created, it's pretty much litter.
Interesting. It's a good way to look at it.
Wait, I hope that nobody ever gets confused with otters and F-14 debris.
So, matter of fact,
Take them out.
I got that little piece of fuselage over in the house as my little souvenir from that trip. So then I kept fishing on down back toward camp, and I pull my line up, and I'm changing out my fly, and I look, and there's the engine core setting under a balsam tree about 10 feet up the riverbank.
Wow.
And so I went up and set my tripod. I've got some really nice photos of the engine core. So then I started walking around, and I found like a half moon shape of the engine cowling still intact. It was laying. So the more I looked, the more I found. There was nothing large. The engine core was the largest piece.
How big was it?
About the size of a beach ball.
Okay.
And it probably, I tried to pick it up. I wasn't going to remove it. I tried to pick it up. It probably.
Leave no trace, Steve.
What's in that backpack, sir? It's just an engine core.
An F-14 engine core.
Time machine.
It weighed, I'm guessing it probably weighed 200 or 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And I had read where a Boy Scout troop had actually gone up there with the sole purpose of removing all that debris. Of course, either they didn't find all of it, or obviously the core was too big to move. But
They couldn't find Eric Rudolph for about 10 or 15 years either.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's.
I mean, things are easy to hide.
I know.
mean,
No,
you can
I
walk
know.
right by somebody
I
in the shrubs and not know they're there.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of Eric, have you had your picture taken in front of the dumpster? I hear that's like a
Out behind Food Line?
Yeah, the
Murphy.
the Eric Rudolph dumpster. It's like a tourist attraction.
Holy cow.
You go over there and take your selfie.
Well,
He was the
God bless Cherokee
he
County.
was the hide and seek champion.
I'm going to save time. I'll just do it in front of a dumpster up here
Yeah.
somewhere.
You would go up.
We'll
there
just
was
say
a,
it was.
there was a little old country store going up toward Nantahala Lake. You'd stop in there and they had somebody had done like a drawing, like a piece of white paper, and put National Hide and Seek Champion Eric Rudolph.
Yeah.
And I think those FBI agents would stop in there and get a drink or something like that, and it was taking a pretty good swipe at him.
Well, I got a funny Eric Rudolph story. One of my buddies was on he's an FBI agent. He's on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and he was assigned to the Eric Rudolph detail. And, of course, they were staying in a hotel over in Murphy. And I would come up here to go trout fishing, and I would come up through Blue Ridge, Mineral Bluff, McKaysville.
60 spur.
Yeah, 60 spur. And then come through Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going over to Robbinsville to go over to Fontana Dam. Well, just about every trip I made that first 6 or 8 months after the bombing, that McDonald's parking lot would have like 6 or 8 black Suburbans with blacked out windows, 6 or 8 antennas sticking out the top, and FBI agents wandering around the parking lot drinking coffee with their commando BDUs on. So I called my buddy when I got back to Atlanta. His name's Felipe. Felipe was from Colombia. I said, Felipe, you're not going to catch Eric Rudolph dressed like Rambo, tromping through people's pastures.
Get to the chopper.
Tromping through people's pastures and backyards. First of all, you're going to alienate the populace, and they're not going to help you. I said, you need to put on some fly fishing gear, get your fishing rod, and go walk those trout streams and fish and mix and mingle.
Or just wear turkey camo year round.
Or turkey or get in a deer stand.
That's it.
You're not going to catch it. And, but.
Orange hat.
Yeah.
You're ready to go.
Yeah, that's neither here nor there, but the very, very true point. And back on that, one thing about the F-14s and F-15s, which are basically similar
And
aircraft,
we're back.
is that the engine itself.
Let's go back to Long John Silver's.
Yeah. Are you serious?
You want some malt vinegar, sir?
I wasn't a malt vinegar
So
guy,
there we go.
man.
There it is.
I wasn't a
Shannon
malt
takes
vinegar.
the bait.
That's right, man. You know better than that.
rabbit trail. They're on it.
Shazam, baby.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, but those engines, you had. It's a dual engine aircraft, and they're large. They're what's this? How long is this table, Bobby?
I don't remember. That was 5 years
It
ago.
is
I built this thing.
10 feet.
84 inches.
Yeah, I'm going to go with about 9 feet.
Okay, so those engines were probably as long as this table, or maybe a smidge
There
longer.
just happens to be a tape measure laying
Yeah,
here.
we
What
got
are the
to
odds
keep.
of that?
Oh, we got to keep our social distance here.
Oh, that's why it's there.
8
That's
foot
right.
9 inches.
All right, so roughly those engines would be about as long as this table here.
Yeah.
They're quite large. General Electric engines, if I'm not mistaken. They're massive. So if there'd be a lot of components to that particular engine, a lot of piping, a lot of electrical components on that. Particular.
Did that book say if they went up there and removed anything that they were worried about people finding, top secret
They
classified stuff?
Matter of fact, the salvage company that does most of the aircraft salvage in the park is based in Griffin, Georgia, which is about 45 miles from where I live. And
We got a big football stadium right off 75.
Yeah. I've actually landed in an aircraft at that airport and saw the salvage equipment out there. And I forget the name of the company, but they did the salvage, and the first thing they got were all the avionics out of the aircraft. And, the other components, I don't know that they're that where the trade secrets are that valuable, but the avionics probably were.
That company's working right now. There was a plane crash in the park last week.
I heard
Was
about
there?
that.
Yeah, this
I
dude
totally missed it.
He missed the runway and landed in the treetops.
Well, I heard his plane
What
had a
runway was he
parachute.
trying to go to?
I don't know, but he ended up on the backside of Kleeman's dome. So
He missed the runway by a ways.
yeah, but I mean the dude walked away from it.
Yeah. Well, the way I read the article, the aircraft had a parachute.
I read that too.
The aircraft itself?
The aircraft
Yes.
had a parachute.
And
That's-
Sounds like an ultralight thing.
That sounds
yeah,
safe.
some kind of home-built experimental or something.
Who knows? He said, I'm going to fish. I don't care if it's closed or not. That's what he was like, I'm getting in, boys.
He got into the park when nobody else did.
he didn't.
He had a plan, man.
So yeah, the book made a fascinating book.
Who wrote that? Do you know by chance?
I don't, but it's on Amazon.
Yeah.
And they've got it in the Visitor Center over at Oconaluftee. But a lot of these plane crashes are by streams we fished, so it's kind of neat to hear about. And then you go back and fish the stream, and you're like,
Well, there you go. Next time you see a piece of trash, it might not be what you think
"That's
it is.
right."
Or it may be a beer can.
Or it could
Be a beer can.
If you're on Deep Creek, it's
That's
probably
right,
a beer
that's right.
can.
Now, speaking of F-14s and Top Gun and stuff like that, did you guys see that commercial? I seen it this week with Maverick going into the
I
store.
haven't seen this.
He goes in, he's got his flight suit on and stuff, and you're like, he gets out of the car, he's got the Maverick helmet, the face shield down, all that, goes in, picks up some stuff, some Tic Tacs, and leaves, gets out to the car, takes his face shield off. It's actually Tom Cruise. And I'm like, and it was kind of a neat, kind of a funny thing there, but you've got that new Top Gun movie coming out sometime.
I think they pushed that to the
looking
fall
for-
now.
That's
I'm
a
looking-
lot of lost revenue. if
I'm
they
looking
just,
forward to it.
Man,
for
I
sure.
went to. Don't need that. About put a panda face on Shannon. Speaking of movies and stuff, we're really digressing now. Sorry, Steve.
No, it's all good.
The kids they saw on Apple TV that the Trolls movie was out. Like, Trolls. I mean, the kids love some Trolls. So we go look at this thing. All right, it's not in theaters, right? It's going from Hollywood straight to your TV.
Boom.
To rent. You ready for this?
What was it, like $40?
$19.99.
Holy smokes.
Well, all right, so
I mean, I understand going to the movie theater,
I know,
but
man, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, there's 4 of you. $19.99 is a good deal.
Probably a pretty good deal.
well, but man, my TV.
If 4 of you went to the big screen, how much would it be?
Now, the problem at the Messer Manor is going to be the fact that, number one, our internet signal is not good enough to be able to get it.
That's right.
So that's the problem.
There's that problem. There's
Yes.
a problem that I'm not watching a 40-foot screen too, with Dolby Digital surround
You
sound.
could put a white sheet on the wall.
So when you rent that movie, how long do you have that movie? It's like a 24
I don't know. I
hour-
was so scared I was going to accidentally buy it. I like turned the TV off.
I'm wonder curious. Do you own it as a digital download or is it a rental?
It's a rental.
No, it's
like,
a rental.
Is it a rental?
Have you ever
Yeah.
used like Vudu or anything like that? You can rent or buy movies.
Like-
When
Have you
rent
ever
it,
done what?
Vudu?
Oh,
I've probably been voodooed before, but
I didn't know
but,
what he said.
no,
when
but
you rent that one, you have it for 24 hours.
got you. No, our internet is so bad we can't stream
yeah.
anything there. But I did see where that happened. Braden he hadn't cared about, he hadn't asked about seeing it, but
He's worried about fishing and turkey.
he's worried about fishing. Man, his turkey hunting kind of got quasied, but that stuff.
He's not going to go turkey hunting.
No, I kind of got squashed. They were doing that like the youth
Oh.
thing there, but with all this stuff going on, that kind of got put on the back burner. So that's fine too.
You can come to my house and shoot a turkey if you
Ten-
want.
Take him over to the water treatment plant. in the
That's
morning.
why. So we hear.
Out the car window.
So
Cast
we-
and blast. Shoot the turkey and then walk.
Apparently, there's a pickup truck somewhere in Graham County with a camouflage recliner in the back of it that people just blast turkeys out of.
Was that the guy with moonshiners?
I don't know.
Jim Tom.
Yeah, okay, Jim Tom.
No, he can't drive. He's,
Rye whiskey, rye whiskey.
I will neither can confirm nor deny that. So
We can't get in to go see anyway.
no, so so a guy, this poor guy, he this is a crazy story. This fella lives in Swain County. I forget his name. All right, it's in the Smoky Mountain News, I think. He lives in Swain County, and man, he had a hankering for some ice cream.
Jesse.
Oh
shows.
yes, I heard
all
about
right,
this.
All right, there's
I
gonna
read
be
it.
a movie about this one day.
He's gonna get paid
He
too.
wanted,
It's a
he
sad
wanted
day.
a cookout milkshake.
Homeboy's gonna get paid.
He left at all right, so Swain County has a curfew right now, 10
10
p.m. to 6 a.m.
And it
All
just has passed.
Yeah.
It just took effect like Tuesday.
That's right. That's right. So when I went turkey hunting, I might have, I'm not sure. I might have been in violation there, but this dude just wanted some cookout. So he drives over here to Silva about 9:45,
And some ice cream.
get some ice cream, right? Because them milkshakes, they are not milkshakes. They're
What's
ice
ice
cream
cream?
when you get them, right? You need a spoon. So he's coming back into Swain County, goes to a roadblock. They write him up. They scratch him a ticket. $1,000.
Yeah.
For being out past your bedtime.
That's the curfew.
And it was like 10:05 p.m.
Yeah.
And
So
it was on like the second day that the law took effect.
That's right. And here he is on the side of 74 in a constitutional crisis debate with some of Swain County's finest, and we do appreciate them. They actually got a note. They checked on the shop the other day down there in Bryson City. And I do
Good deal,
appreciate
man.
that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So they gave the roadblocks a rest, and I checked on the shop. but
$1,000 ice cream cost.
Just
But
don't be
this
late
dude is
leaving town.
he's taking it to court, and it's like, okay, yeah, he's got a chance. And then I read, Mr. Shows has decided to rep himself. And I'm like, oh, there it goes.
Got a fool for a client.
So my wife works
He's a
with
2-year-old turkey, been hunting 4 years.
my wife works with a lady, and they live in Swain County, but they work up here at the hospital in Jackson County, and they were having trouble with their dog. He was real sick and stuff, so they had to bring him to the emergency vet, which is the 24-hour vet that's in Jackson County. So it's like 1 a.m. in the morning. They dropped their dog off, and I mean, this dog was throwing up blood, stuff like that. I mean, it was in bad shape. So they're going back, and they got pulled. And the guy said, "What are you doing out?" So they told him, and he's like, "Well, I need to see proof." Well, the dog just got dropped off at the vet. Like, they haven't billed them, or like they have no proof. They have no paperwork. And she said, "I can show you where I called the vet's office, when we were calling to tell them that we needed to come up there and meet them." And he's like, "That's not enough. I need proof." And she's like, "I don't have any proof." And he was about to write her $1,000 ticket. She said, "The only proof I have is if you go to the back of my car, there's a bunch of blood and dog hair. You can go look at that." And me and my wife are like, You told him there was blood in your back of your car? Like, that's not how you get out of.
Maybe
No.
don't tell an officer that.
Now the homicide detective is on his way.
Nothing like getting everything in your trunk thrown on the side of the highway at 10 p.m.
So, anyways, he looked at that, looked at her phone, and he let him go. But he was about to write him a ticket. So $1,000, yeah.
So at what point and can they actually enforce something like that?
So, according to an email I got about the 6-foot rule and guiding, is that the DA, the district DA, is that she is going to prosecute these things.
My question is, what is the charge?
It is a second class 2 misdemeanor.
I mean, what is the charge? I know it's a
Like
misdemeanor.
what's the charge that they actually say this is what
yeah.
I don't know what that's called.
I don't know. I don't want them to write. I'm too close to Steve because that just looks funny.
At some point, the commissioners, I'm assuming in Swain County, had to draft an ordinance, a county ordinance. I know it's not a state law.
Right.
A county ordinance establishing the curfew and in violation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I think the constitutionality of that curfew law is going to come into play. And I thought it was a traffic stop. I don't think it was a checkpoint.
Well, I've been over there, and you got to go through a couple roadblocks. They do them at
That
High
was my
Creek
question. If it was a traffic stop, what was the probable cause
Of
for the
stopping
stop?
Uh-huh.
Or did you just have a hunch,
Right.
which is not probable cause?
Well, you know where the westbound right-hand lane's falling off the side of the mountain on 74 just past the High Creek exit?
Mm-hmm.
It bottlenecks right there. That goes down,
Because of the cones. Yeah.
So they have been doing roadblocks there because
Oh, okay.
it narrows traffic perfectly for them.
Well, if they were doing like a safety checkpoint
Yeah, right.
for DUIs and whatever, then I think it would have been a good stop.
Yeah.
But if Buddy's just riding down the road and
I mean, I guess if that curfew's in effect, though, and you're riding down the road, there's probable cause right there.
not necessarily. He could be a doctor or a nurse coming home
What,
from work.
what about your friends, Bobby? What they?
They just got pulled over because they were driving down the road.
That's what I'm saying. If that
Well,
curfew's in effect-
he used to be a cop. He could say that's
Yeah,
that's probably not probable
I've
cause.
been
He's-
once a cop, always a cop.
I've been grilled on this numerous times.
So that was my question: is when can they enact a curfew? My thinking or understanding was you just don't enact a curfew. There's got to be some kind of emergency. I don't know if COVID is an emergency to enact a curfew.
Especially in a county where you only have like one or
That's-
two cases.
I
they have
think-
none still.
I think
Zero in
that's
Swain.
I think
Zero down
that's
there.
the point that we have to look at here, and this is where this is going to get interesting. If he had legal representation, I'm like y'all,
Maybe he's an attorney. We don't know.
and we don't know. I mean, it you know we
That's a good point.
we know attorneys that have a house down there. I mean, we know
Yeah,
that,
that's right.
so it's definitely plausible. But I mean, I think that's going to be the question of all these curfews. I mean, look what's going on in Michigan, for Pete's sakes. I mean, there's other places that are experiencing a lot of things right now, and people are feeling like their civil rights are being taken away.
But what about
during
these people that are getting charged for going to church?
Absolutely.
You know, that's going to wind up.
Do-
There's going to be all kind of case law coming.
Yeah.
Let-
Well, a lot of this
absolutely.
stuff's just going to get dropped. They're going to dismiss it.
Let
and
me-
kick it
let me
out of
say-
Hatfield.
Yeah, but
We-
then you're going to have the civil actions.
Yeah.
We had 8 inches of rain the other night, and we still got a burn ban.
no, they lifted
No,
the
they
burn
lifted
ban.
the burn
They
ban
did
the next
lift it?
morning. Yes.
Well, guess what? We got fires over there out at Solly now.
Yeah, from
but-
lightning strikes.
Solly and Meeting House are on fire.
Yeah, so
They're
the-
small.
They lifted the burn ban. That they
good.
did. They
So
did.
to bring this back to fishing.
yes, yes. So absolutely.
that.
We
Yeah.
digress.
So to bring this, I've got buddies calling me saying, "Hey, can I come up there and go fishing? Am I going to get jacked up if I drive up there and go fishing with Georgia plates?"
Yes, Bobby's riding the road looking for
I
you.
am looking for everybody. I call in every license plate.
So I don't know what the answer is.
You know, the talking with some folks about this that are more in the know than I am about emergency orders and law, certainly. Day trips are okay, but you better pack your lunch, you know, because if you come into
That's
North
right.
Carolina,
You can't. There's no lodging.
that's right, there's no lodging.
And you're not supposed to go to the grocery store.
No campgrounds. Don't go to the. You're supposed to quarantine for 14 days if you come across the state border. So we obviously, Jackson County. There's too many ways into Jackson County and out, for that matter. So they're not going to be able to put the roadblocks up, safety checks like Swain and Graham can do. So day trips you can't stop. But I would say, as a resident trying to keep my family safe, and certainly for everybody in this room, is just pack your lunch, don't go to the grocery store, come with a full tank of gas, so that you can get back home and try to not even touch our gas. Because, I mean, that's how it spreads is people traveling. We're a very mobile society. Shannon and I were talking about that one day. But, at the same time, too, is when you drive down River Road on Saturday, man, that place was packed.
Yeah.
There were guided trips.
I saw probably 8 or 10 boats.
There were private boats. There were commercial guided boats. There were commercial guided wade trips. And in the wade trips, they're not standing 6 feet apart. They're standing like a foot apart. And you're touching grips. You're passing rods from one person to the next, and nets maybe.
Fish.
And fish. But yeah, we've really got to take a step back and make sure we're practicing these things on the water, because we saw what happened in Florida. You mentioned it, is they closed all the fishing. All the boat ramps got closed.
Well, it was actually worse than that. They did not close all of them. I've got a buddy that lives in Everglades City over on the West Coast. And Miami-Dade closed all their city parks with the ramps. So now everybody in Miami came over to Everglades City.
Yeah, so it just made it worse.
He said there were boat trailers on that first Saturday morning after they closed the ramps for a mile in both directions on the side of the road. People had launched and had to park a mile away.
Wow.
He said it was unreal. So you've created a worse situation by closing the ramps in Miami-Dade, and everybody is, and they're doing the same thing with parks, hiking trails.
Yep.
Yeah.
This park's closed, but this one's open.
They're just narrowing the corridor.
Everybody just got. I did see they closed Blue Ridge Parkway finally.
Yeah, that sort of worked out perfect for them. I read that they had all kinds of trees down
from the
obviously
storms.
from those storms, and so they just closed it. And I think they said, let's just go ahead and keep it closed.
Yeah.
And my fear is some of these things closed until August. I understand that makes it easy for them not to have to write numerous orders, and let's just write one order that's going to cover us for a while, but we can lift that order,
I think that's what
if it
Pisgah
deems
did.
necessary.
Yeah.
So Nantahala, that's going to be tough, and certainly Nantahala's got some streams closed, and not streams closed, but trails closed. So yeah, I think it's odd for us, Steve, because we've been people call us, hey, can we come fishing? And even for day trips, we're just telling people not to come. Mm-hmm. Like, let's just bite the bullet here. Let's buckle down. And it's working. We're flattening the curve. But let's not get this privilege and right taken away from us because we can't. And we saw the last day we were opening here, a couple days before the last day, somebody from a hotspot. I'm not going to name the hotspot.
I will.
Okay, so it's from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
This guy comes in the shop from Brooklyn. Cuomo and Anastasio had already put out there, whatever the mayor's name. What's the mayor?
De Blasio.
De Blasio. That's it.
Big Bird.
So they had already put out the do not travel, stay at home order. And this dude walks into the shop. And Bobby said, everybody just took a step back. It got quiet, and everybody took a step back.
Yeah, he first said, I'm from New York, and we were all like, took our step back. And then he walked away for a second to look at something. And I was like, when you say New York, do you mean New York proper or like upstate New York? He's like, oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Like, yeah. Like, that's
and we
like
were
saying,
all like, you're supposed to quarantine.
hey, yo, I'm from Ground Zero.
I did. I quarantined for 7 days.
7 days.
Well,
that's exactly
so
what he said. 7 days.
Affirmation for us, we've had a lot of people. Now look, you get when you let's see if we can. I don't know if that'll end up reading that look you get when you walk into Tuckasegee Fly Shop bragging. Call back home in New York. That's
there
great.
he is. Oh,
So-
my heavens. That's hilarious.
So
It's backwards on Facebook.
yeah, I realize that. Yeah. But
You'll have to use your mirror to read it.
So it's the last day. The governor's stay-at-home order goes into effect at 5 p.m. on this Monday. I forget what date it was. 27th, maybe 30th. Okay. So
the day that will live in.
we have a family that comes in from a suburb of Atlanta and says, yeah, we got a second home over here in Whittier. We came up. We've been up here for 3 days, and we just really needed to get out of the house. And I mean, second homeowners, they pay taxes. That's fine. Come on up. But let's make sure you're obeying the local laws. Bobby says, well, you're supposed to quarantine for 14 days before you come into a shop like this. Yeah, we don't care.
Yeah, we did it for 3 days is what they said. We did it for
3 days. We're good.
We don't have it, so.
And it's just like, so with that kind of sentiment, it's like, as a member of this community, we cannot justify remaining open and basically encouraging that type of bag, because they were just out to peruse downtown. It wasn't like they were looking for
essential items. Yeah, they were just killing time.
Yeah, and so it really honestly it kind of, I mean, I'm a big enough man, I can say it hurt my feelings that they just had a
nonchalant attitude about it.
I just think it was kind of disrespectful.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, we live far enough away from Atlanta. No, 30 minutes from Atlanta, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like, let's be clear, that's Atlanta. That's a lot of people. So, and we love our friends from Atlanta. We love you, Steve.
Well, you know, Miami.
He's from Noonan.
Miami.
Noonan.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. I live in a rural area of Coweta County.
That's right, and he's 45 minutes. That's outside Atlanta.
I live like 4 miles from the Heard County line.
How far are you from the Atlanta Motor Speedway?
An hour.
North or south?
West.
Okay.
I'm 22 miles from the Alabama.
But they
State
still
line.
call it Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yeah.
And it's an hour out of town.
Yeah. Well,
So you Atlanta.
if you're within 50 miles of Atlanta, everybody says.
Exactly.
But anyhow.
Sorry, I digress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I don't know what you were saying.
Long
either.
John Silver's.
Sorry, Steve.
Are you ready to order?
No, I had to go to Lowe's the other day.
Yeah.
So I got on my Georgia Tech T-shirt.
Oh, I bet you got some looks.
No, I changed before I went
Go Cats.
and I put on my Tuckasegee Fly Shop hat.
Nice.
That's all right.
And they're all saying that's that dang guide from down there on the
No.
river.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're skunked again.
Yeah.
But no, what I was going to say is Miami it exploded there like overnight. And what
Yeah.
happened was they have a huge New York population down there for the winter.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
And they're back and forth.
Yeah.
And they attribute that to the spread in Miami in South Florida.
I mean, it's travel. Ultimately, it's travel.
Snowbirds.
and the death rate is so high because there's a large retiree population.
Yeah, the age is definitely
And,
a little higher.
And those are the people going back and forth to New
Yeah.
York.
Yeah. I will say Steve's been here for several weeks.
That's right. He's
Steve-
done his
Steve's-
time.
Steve has been here. Steve has very rarely left his house.
Every time I drive by
so-
Steve's house on North River Road, he's on the roof.
There
Yeah,
you
so
go.
so Steve practices the rules there for sure. So.
But all good things must come to the end. I've got to go back to the leper colony tomorrow. So
Do you really? You gotta go.
yeah, I'll call and
Well, I'm glad we caught you.
I'll call and check in every couple of days
Yeah.
and let you guys know how I'm doing. But,
That's right.
Well, you're not in the leper colony. You're outside of
I'm way west. But
You're way out there.
Go to the leper colony.
I met a professor from Western over here at Innovation one night, and we got to talking, and he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Atlanta," and he's like, "BS." I'm like, he said, "Nobody's from Atlanta. Where are you from?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, I'm from Noonan, Georgia." Noonan, Georgia. He said, "I grew up in Whitesburg," which is like 10 miles away, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of those things where everybody just assumes you're from Atlanta just because you live close to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm in West Georgia, and the county line is like I could throw a rock, hit the county line, and Heard County has no cases of COVID right now.
No kidding.
So the population density where I'm at is about like it is here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I got to roll up my window when I come through the big city, but
He does that anyways, though.
Make sure the vent's not on. It's on circulate.
That's right. That recirc, people. That's the button.
That'll
has
probably
the
be your quickest
arrow
trip
going.
through Atlanta
yeah.
to date, because there's probably not hardly any cars
You know,
out.
it's a weird situation. It's a totally different world up here when it comes to this virus thing. When you're not subjected to it, when you don't have friends that have been diagnosed,
Yeah.
you get complacent. You know,
Oh, interesting.
we just see our exposure to it up here is what we see on the news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But down there, you actually have acquaintances that are in the hospital,
Yeah.
and
I don't know. My wife works at the hospital. When she tells me about walking through the zipper thunderhead curtain, as they call it,
well, I went
that it like sits home a little bit.
to the dentist like 2 days before I came up here. So I go in there, and they've got on like hazmat suits, full body suits with the booties, the head nets, the face shield, the mask, the rubber gloves. And I'm like, hey, this must be real.
Yeah.
Well, she told me, she said, this is the last day we're open. We're going to be here every Wednesday for emergency dental procedures, only
Yeah.
emergencies. We're donating all of our protective equipment to the local hospital. They've asked for it.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
down there, it's totally different.
Oh, yeah.
I can go in Lowe's up here. I'm about the only one with a mask on. Now
Yeah.
it's gotten better.
Today I was the only one with didn't have a
I was
mask.
going to say it's gotten better this
Yeah.
week. Last week I was the only one with a mask on. This week there was more people.
Yeah.
But you go down around the metro area, everybody's got on masks.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been down there in a little over 2 weeks, so I can only imagine now. It's
Yeah.
probably their
You know, I
lives.
heard, speaking of Lowe's, and we'll wrap up here shortly, but I was in line checking out at Lowe's, and I hear a guy behind me say, "Yeah, y'all got a Costco around here, don't you?"
Red flag.
You ain't from around here, are you? Yeah, he didn't do his quarantine, and yeah, I mean, some people are renting these Airbnbs for 30 days, getting around this
Yeah.
28-day rule, and
Well, I got out of town. It was on a Wednesday. They said that the governor of Georgia was going to
thank all the sponsors.
He was going to sign a stay-at-home order on Friday afternoon. So Thursday afternoon, I went and bought my groceries, loaded the car up, came up Thursday evening.
Yeah,
Because I didn't know if they were going to block the state line. Or,
Yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't put the state troopers out
Now,
to do that.
I had all my documentation to show I was a homeowner, and I had my 2 weeks worth of groceries in the back, and the dog was with me.
We saw the county out at the coast, Dare County, which is
Ooh.
Hatteras.
Ooh,
They
yes.
won't let part-time residents on.
Yes.
And they've actually
heard
got a
about-
community lawsuit
Yes.
against the county now.
I heard about that.
Yes.
If you pay taxes, you should be able to come in.
Well,
It's
that's kind of where they're at with that too. So
Yeah,
well,
so
that's
I
Because
know
another.
I've wondered about this. You know, they're collecting taxes, property taxes on this population, but we're not building infrastructure based on that population if they're
Yeah.
here. You know, so like our hospitals are not built to the size they should be based
No,
on
it's
that
true.
population.
That census that you fill out right now, if you live in South Carolina, you're going to fill it out that you live in South Carolina, not
Yeah.
Jackson County.
Yeah.
Well, so we got a lot of people here right now. Maybe they'll fill it out for here.
It's very misleading numbers. That's very true.
We'll get another congressional district. I hope.
Take for example the college. During the summer, there's not
Yeah.
anybody here. Then all of a sudden, in September, you got 10,000 more residents.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
put a strain on.
That's when we quit going to Walmart.
That. So the positives before we wrap this up here with everything that's going on, I think my belief is we'll come out stronger on the other side.
That's right.
We're going to learn a lot from this and hopefully be prepared for something like this that will happen sooner, I think, rather than later. On the fishing standpoint, there's not as many fishing. You don't
Yeah,
have the
that's
college
right.
students, with all the colleges.
And they did stock last week.
They did.
stock, and but your national park is closed. You start looking at these things. When it opens, you better be ready to come following what the guidelines are in place. So when you come, it's going to be good. It's going to be probably better than good.
Be some big fish in the Nantahala.
It's going to be real interesting because at this point here, depending on how things go, those delayed harvest waters may
That's right.
it may not get hit, that first Saturday in June or something like it normally would.
Bloody Saturday.
You
well,
know, we
man,
don't know.
there's so many positives. If we had been all systems go guiding like crazy, my mom had a healthcare emergency this weekend. I had to rush her to the ER. If I'd have been on the water, I wouldn't have been there to help her and help my dad out. So it's like, there's ways of looking at all this.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
certainly couldn't have bagged my first gobbler there Saturday morning either.
That's right,
So,
man. Did it yo?
he yelled. I shot him in the head, broke his feet.
Did you do yo?
Hey, so before we go here, one other positive, I'm going to let Dale talk about this, is the online store's back up and going.
Yeah.
So
All right, so
do the plug for that.
Go to www.chuckflyshop.com/shop. So from the homepage, we've got it's on the button menu there across the top, shop online, and then we've also for anybody that needs readers, we've got a big button that says shop online too. So that's Shannon's wearing his readers.
2.5s and they're not big enough anymore. I'm getting worse quick, dude, man.
So there is.
You got any of those flat bill hats?
Oh, they're on there.
You can be the flat bill mafia if you want to.
The flat bills are on there. So we do have. I think at last count, there's 34 different products on there and different colors within those products, and it's very raw. And so when I say that, it's like a lot of these are pictures that I've just taken from my phone. Some of them I've been able to grab from manufacturers, but and vendors. But we want you to be able to continue to shop with us, and we certainly appreciate your support there. We've had several orders going out daily, and thank you for that support. It really does mean a lot. But yeah, click on there, peruse it. I'm going to continue to add products to it daily and polish it daily. Also going to try to make it easier to navigate. Right now, it's just all our products on one page, and that's turning into chaos right now. But there's a learning curve here, and I'm trying to make it where there's collections in there, and then you click on the collection to see, okay, what wading boots do they got? Let me just click on the wading boot button, and then I can see all the different wading boots, but not see the high and dry shake right beside the wading boots. So bear with us on that, but certainly you can still purchase gift cards for trips, guided trips to be determined.
And we probably are going to try to start some raffles maybe next week, where we do some larger items or some, what would you call it, like a little set. Maybe it's a fly box and
some combos and things.
But that'll be something where, maybe it's a $10 or $20 buy-in, and there's so many tickets, and once we sell all the tickets, somebody's name gets pulled.
And that'll be pulled. That'll be those tickets will be purchased in that web store.
Yeah, we'll be able to do that online.
So make sure go in there and just check it out.
Social distancing at its finest.
That's it, man. And iron sharpens iron. I mean, this is a hard time, and we're having to do some hard work and relearn this e-commerce thing.
We're going to build a drive-up window soon.
We've done the e-commerce thing before. We're going to do it again. And we're finding this time it's actually a lot easier. It's amazing what 2 years has done for technology and e-com. So, but do go check that out, tuckflyshop.com/shop.
Cool.
And it's just, you can go to tuckflyshop.com and navigate that way as well.
There it is, yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
I'm not a backslash person.
He doesn't know where that's on the keyboard.
I'm a /. Are you ready?
or if you're like Bobby, Siri doesn't get it right sometimes.
That's right, man.
Tuckflyshop.com.
I dictate everything into my phone.
/SHOP.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate Steve hanging out for a little bit. I hate you got to go back to Georgia. But
well, Steve, you look relaxed, man.
It was good for you to be here for a month.
Thanks for coming in and sitting with us.
Sure.
We'll have you back once you do your next quarantine.
All right.
And I tell y'all,
unless
sneak
he
peek.
breaks the stuff.
Steve,
yeah, way to go.
Break the mic there.
Dude, man.
Steve, that'll be available for purchase on the online store later too. Steve has got some amazing traffic stories about North River Road and water rescues.
Yes.
So
he's got a lot of good stories.
He does. Amazing storyteller too, man. Great job.
I skirted past a lot of them because I don't know what line to go up to.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I'm we might have to talk to him before and say, can we talk about these items?
Steve has got some interesting stories, which is we've watched some championship football at Steve's house. We've eaten some pretty good food over there.
Yeah.
I've heard some really good stories from him, and he's been well traveled.
That's right.
And and a lot of it has to do with fishing.
Oh yeah.
A good one would be your trip to Africa too.
Oh,
That'd be a really good one to do just
that.
one podcast about.
Yeah,
I'm sure a ton of people would love to hear about that.
Africa, fishing in Alaska.
Yeah.
That's another one.
I can hear the teaser. Join us next time as we hear about the bald eagle and Coco the cat.
Yeah, there it is. So, well, we appreciate everybody listening. Everybody stay safe, stay well, practice all the guidelines, social distancing, all that good stuff, and
make sure y'all fish 6 feet apart.
6 feet apart. That's all.
Y'all just gonna get tangled up fishing side by side.
Just use your rod. If you can touch your buddy with your rod, you're too close.
Well, listen, if you can see your buddy, you're probably too close.
There you go.
Trust me.
Go.
Yes.
Well, tight lines, everybody on Facebook Live. Thanks for joining in. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
All right, folks. We appreciate you listening to the Tuckcast with a Splash of Bourbon. We'll catch you on the next one.